By the spring of 1999, roads across Kosovo were crowded with families carrying whatever they could hold. Tractors, cars, horse-drawn carts, and long columns of people moved toward neighboring borders. Villages emptied, cities filled with fear and uncertainty. Within weeks, hundreds of thousands of civilians had left their homes as a conflict that had been building for years erupted into one of Europe's largest population displacements since the Second World War. The crisis drew international attention, triggered a major military intervention, and left lasting consequences that continue to shape the Balkans decades later. The events of 1999 did not emerge suddenly. Their roots stretched deep into the complex history of the Balkans, a region shaped by competing national identities, shifting borders, and centuries of political change. Kosovo, a territory located in the southern part of what was then the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, held particular significance for both Serbs and Albanians. By the late 20th century, ethnic Albanians made up the overwhelming majority of Kosovo's population, while many Serbs viewed the region as central to their historical and cultural heritage. For much of the post-war era, Kosovo existed as an autonomous province within socialist Yugoslavia. Under the leadership of Josip Broz Tito, Yugoslavia maintained a delicate balance among its various ethnic groups and republics. Kosovo enjoyed a significant degree of self-government, particularly after constitutional reforms in the 1970s expanded provincial autonomy. However, tensions between communities never fully disappeared. The situation changed dramatically during the late 1980s. As Yugoslavia entered a period of economic hardship and political instability, nationalist movements gained strength across the federation. In Serbia, political leader Slobodan Milošević rose to prominence by advocating greater Serbian control over territories within Yugoslavia. In 1989, Kosovo's autonomy was substantially reduced. Many ethnic Albanians viewed the move as a direct attack on their political rights and cultural identity. The following years saw growing divisions. Many Albanians in Kosovo withdrew from state institutions and established parallel systems for education, healthcare, and local governance. Political leaders pursued largely non-violent resistance during the early 1990s, seeking international support for greater autonomy or independence. Yet, as conflicts elsewhere in the former Yugoslavia produced violence and war, frustration grew among those who believed peaceful methods were failing to achieve meaningful change. By the mid-1990s, a new armed movement emerged. Known as the Kosovo Liberation Army, or KLA, it sought independence from Serbian control through armed resistance. Initially small, the organization gained support as tensions escalated. Attacks targeting Serbian police and officials increased. Yugoslav and Serbian security forces responded with military and police operations intended to suppress the insurgency. During 1998, the conflict intensified significantly. Fighting spread across parts of Kosovo as government forces launched operations against areas believed to support the KLA. Villages became battlegrounds. Civilians increasingly found themselves trapped between armed groups. Reports from international organizations documented displacement, destruction of property, and growing humanitarian concerns. Thousands of people were forced from their homes even before the events that would unfold the following year. The international community became increasingly alarmed. Western governments feared that Kosovo might become the latest chapter in the violent dissolution of Yugoslavia. Diplomatic efforts sought to reduce hostilities and establish a political settlement. International observers were deployed to monitor conditions on the ground. Despite these efforts, violence continued. By early 1999, negotiations were held in Rambouillet, France. In an attempt to reach a peace agreement, representatives from Kosovo Albanian groups and the Yugoslav government participated in discussions supported by major international powers. The proposed agreement envisioned substantial autonomy for Kosovo and the presence of international forces to oversee implementation. The negotiations ultimately failed to produce a mutually accepted settlement. Disagreements remained over key provisions, particularly concerning foreign military deployment and sovereignty. As diplomacy stalled, concerns grew that the conflict could expand further. In March 1999, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, commonly known as NATO, launched an air campaign against targets in the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. NATO leaders argued that military action was necessary to prevent a worsening humanitarian catastrophe and to pressure Yugoslav authorities into accepting a political resolution. Yugoslav officials rejected the intervention, describing it as a violation of national sovereignty. The beginning of the air campaign marked a dramatic turning point. As bombing operations intensified, conditions inside Kosovo deteriorated rapidly. Large numbers of civilians began leaving their homes. International agencies, governments, and human rights organizations documented a massive wave of displacement during the following weeks. Many Kosovo Albanians fled toward neighboring Albania, North Macedonia, and Montenegro. Border crossings became scenes of extraordinary pressure as thousands arrived daily. Families often traveled under difficult conditions, carrying limited belongings and uncertain whether they would ever return home. Refugee camps expanded quickly as humanitarian organizations worked to provide shelter, food, medical assistance, and basic services. The scale of the displacement shocked much of the world. By the height of the crisis, hundreds of thousands of people had crossed international borders, while many others remained displaced within Kosovo itself. The movement of civilians became one of the defining images of the conflict. Television broadcasts and newspaper reports carried scenes of crowded roads, packed refugee camps, and families separated by war. Life inside Kosovo grew increasingly difficult. Many communities experienced disruption to essential services and economic activity. Homes, businesses, and infrastructure suffered damage from various aspects of the conflict. Fear and uncertainty became constant realities for civilians attempting to survive amid rapidly changing circumstances. Human rights organizations documented numerous allegations of abuses during the conflict. Investigations conducted by international bodies after the war examined reports involving unlawful killings, forced displacement, property destruction, and other violations. Subsequent legal proceedings before international tribunals addressed crimes committed during the conflict by different actors. These investigations formed part of broader efforts to establish accountability and create an official historical record. Meanwhile, NATO's air campaign continued for 78 days. Aircraft targeted military facilities, infrastructure, communication systems, and other strategic locations across Yugoslavia. The operation represented one of the most significant military actions undertaken by the alliance since its creation. While NATO stated that its objectives focused on ending the humanitarian crisis and compelling political concessions, the bombing campaign itself generated controversy and remains the subject of historical and legal debate. The effects of the airstrikes extended beyond military targets. Damage to infrastructure affected civilian life in various parts of Yugoslavia. Economic activity declined, transportation networks were disrupted, and daily routines became increasingly difficult. The broader population faced uncertainty as the conflict continued without a clear end in sight. Throughout the spring of 1999, diplomatic efforts remained active behind the scenes. International leaders sought a formula capable of ending hostilities while addressing competing political demands. Negotiations involved multiple governments, international organizations, and representatives from the region. Pressure mounted on all sides as the humanitarian situation remained severe. By June 1999, a breakthrough emerged. Agreements were reached that paved the way for the withdrawal of Yugoslav and Serbian security forces from Kosovo. NATO suspended its air campaign after confirming compliance with the terms. The conflict that had dominated international headlines for months was entering a new phase. Soon afterward, an international security presence led by NATO entered Kosovo. Known as KFOR, the force was tasked with maintaining security and supporting stability. At the same time, the United Nations established an interim administration known as UNMEC to oversee governance and reconstruction efforts. The end of active hostilities allowed many displaced people to begin returning home. For countless families, however, return did not mean a return to normal life. Many discovered damaged homes, disrupted communities, and uncertain economic prospects. Rebuilding would require years of effort. The post-war period also brought new challenges. While many Kosovo Albanians returned, large numbers of Serbs and members of other minority communities left Kosovo due to security concerns and changing political conditions. International organizations documented additional displacement and tensions during the aftermath of the conflict. Building trust between communities proved difficult after years of conflict and mutual fear. Reconstruction efforts focused on restoring infrastructure, reopening schools, rebuilding public services, and supporting economic recovery. International aid played a major role in these initiatives. Roads, utilities, government institutions, and community facilities required extensive repair or replacement. Progress varied across different sectors, but rebuilding became one of the central priorities of the post-war administration. Politically, Kosovo entered a prolonged period of transition. Questions regarding its future status remained unresolved for years. International mediation efforts attempted to balance competing claims and aspirations. In 2008, Kosovo declared independence. The move was recognized by many countries but rejected by Serbia, creating a situation that continues to influence regional politics and international diplomacy. The legacy of 1999 extends beyond political debates. For those who lived through the conflict, memories of displacement, uncertainty, and loss remain deeply personal. Entire communities were transformed by the events of that year. Families rebuilt lives in altered circumstances, while younger generations grew up in a region still shaped by the consequences of war. Historians continue to examine the Kosovo conflict from multiple perspectives. Discussions often focus on nationalism, state sovereignty, humanitarian intervention, international law, ethnic relations, and the challenges of post-conflict reconstruction. The events remain significant, not only because of their impact on the Balkans, but also because they influence broader international debates about the responsibilities of governments, military alliances, and global institutions during humanitarian crises. The images that emerged from Kosovo in 1999, families on crowded roads, refugees crossing borders, and communities struggling to endure upheaval, became symbols of a conflict that reshaped an entire region. Hundreds of thousands were forced to leave their homes, and the consequences of that displacement echoed far beyond the immediate crisis. The war altered political boundaries, transformed international relations, and left lasting marks on the lives of those who experienced it. More than 2 decades later, the story of Kosovo remains a reminder of how quickly long-standing tensions can escalate into humanitarian emergencies, and how the effects of conflict continue long after the fighting itself has ended.